Welcome to the Fortunate Events podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Bennett, and this podcast explores how education, careers, and life experiences intersect in unexpected ways. My journey has been filled with fortunate events, many of which seemed like challenges at the time, but it ultimately led to growth and opportunities. Today, I'm excited to welcome Dakoda Mazzii. She's an adult fantasy romance author whose debut novel, Chasm of Dreams, is awaiting acquisition from a publisher. We're going to dive into her writing journey and the fortunate event moments that shaped her career. Do you want to go ahead and give us a little bit of an introduction yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining.
I am fresh into this journey, been in it for less than a year, learned a lot in that time, but I never imagined myself as an author until I just decided one day, I think I can do this. I think I can write a book. But, I liked creative writing growing up, but yeah, it's all very new to me. The idea of actually putting out a product that people will love, and it's very fun.
I love that. So let's start from the beginning then. How did you get into writing? I guess your career has not been focused on writing, and this is more of a hobby that you've picked up?
Yes. Yeah, definitely started as cliche as it sounds. I woke up from a nap one day and I had this idea, and I was like, I've never read a book like that. The similar tropes you'll find in the genre are some of my favorite to read. And then I just thought, I want to write a book that I would love to read, and something that's really intense, but also not devastating to where you're angry at the author. You're like, why did you do this to me? Why did you do this to the characters? So
like Dexter, that terrible ending.
All of it, right? Yes, it's watchable, but then it leaves you hanging and wishing for more. So I kind of wanted to create something that would have left me with that satisfied feeling. So
That's so neat. So if this is more of kind of your passion, what is your day-to-day? Is it something that you also enjoy, or is it just something that kind of helps pay the way?
The day-to-day has been adjusting, and it's a really intense job, and it's seasonal work, and obviously being a parent as number one job, 40 hours a week, 24/7, 365. So this became a hobby, and then it quickly spiraled, and I was Googling how do people actually become authors? How is it that how do the people get into stores like Barnes and Noble? That's my dream. It's walking in and seeing your book on a table.
Yes.
Doing signings, that would be so fun. And so I dove in head first. I was how do people do this? And then the process is finding an agent. So that's kind of when it started. So I went obsessed mode. I wrote the first 72,000 words of the novel in less than a month.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I started querying for agents.
Okay. So you said you're very new to this, about a year or so that you've been doing this, and it's really started as a passion. Did you do writing growing up?
Not as a teenager, no.
Okay.
I mean, I did stuff in school and in college, and I loved it. I loved creative writing. I loved language arts. I didn't realize that I could do it until I actually started building a story. And a lot of people in the fantasy romance, or also known as romantasy genre, there's been a renaissance of new material out there, and all of that inspired me too.
Okay. So I wouldn't say that this is my typical genre, but I did read 50 Shades of Grey. And that qualifies in the same genre, right? Would you put it in the same?
I would consider that dark romance.
Okay.
So it's urban setting, but you have the power plays, you have the not so conventional relationship between the two of them. And yeah, that was a renaissance for a lot of people into dark romance. For me, a lot of people started with obviously in high school, the same demographic of readers probably read Twilight.
Yep. I actually didn't read it, but I did watch all of them.
Watching Vampire Diaries, and I took it a step further. I was really I loved Lord of the Rings. I think my dad gave me The Hobbit when I was in 6th grade or something, and it's a pretty dark book. I don't know if I'd give it to my 6th grader, but I love Tolkien, and I loved Anne Rice, the Vampire Chronicles of hers. So that right there, like, was kind of like the foundation of, like, man, these people, like, they know how to build a world and a story and all these intricate characters. So then, you know, most people took a hiatus. Life happens. And then the Renaissance came with Sarah J. Maas books for a lot of people.
Okay.
Fourth Wing, Rebecca Yarros for a lot of people.
One.
For me, it was Outlander. It was Diana Gabaldon.
Yep.
Those books, they're so devastating, but man, you're just like, you're sucked
hooked,
in,
right?
You're sucked in. Yeah. So I was like, man, these are so impactful stories. Can I do something like that?
Yeah. And you never know until you try.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I love that. I love hearing about how you got started. Just to kind of highlight on my own journey, I started my career in 2011 after I graduated from UHCL with a degree in communication. And I stayed on that path. So I know some people will go to school for certain things and, you know, their career isn't really tied to it. And maybe that will be the same for you. But for me, it was the right path, and it's really flourished, I'd say, over the last several years. So I started at a PR firm right out of college. I actually started as an intern there, and then they hired me on full time as my first career position. So that was exciting. But it was a lot. PR, working in an agency, you're juggling many clients, you're having to, focus on several things, and it can just be a lot at some points, especially when you have small children. My son was 5 when I was working there. So, but I worked there for a few years and then moved into marketing for a home builder, and that kind of grew my career in real estate. I've worked for several home builders now. And recently, just about a year ago, I moved from internal to working for another agency. So I've been doing that and have enjoyed it. I've definitely, grown my skills and time management and, all the things that you have to do when you're juggling work for multiple clients. Yes. So, I'm very happy with my career path, but, who knows what the future holds. I'm one of those people who always is growing and striving and, looking for more. This podcast is actually part of a master's program that I'm doing also at UHCL. And I graduate in December. So after that, the sky's kind of the limit with what else I might be doing with my career, especially now that my son Branson is 19 and he graduates next week.
Congrats!
Thank you. It's crazy. Especially since I had him at this age. I was literally his age when I had him, and I cannot imagine him having a child. But we made it. We figured it out along the way.
Moms always do.
We definitely grew up together. But yeah, so, for me, I'm used to juggling, multitasking, things like that. You definitely have to do that as a writer and a career woman. So yes. I think we share that in common.
Got a little crazy.
Yes.
Little sprinkle of type A in there.
Yeah, for sure. But I love to hear, about people's backgrounds and what brought you to where you are now. And kind of the whole premise of the podcast is, exploring how things come about in your life that you weren't necessarily expecting for. And it sounds like for you, this was kind of a dream that came from an actual dream. You said you were sleeping.
so sounds so silly, but I swear.
No,
I just
but it's
woke
amazing.
up and I was like, I'm going to start. I started the outline. Took me about a week to get the outline done. And then I started doing chapter outlines individually, and then I just started.
I mean, it's so impressive, because a book, it's a big feat. It's not just something that you can do, in one sitting. It's sometimes years long process.
Yes.
So it's very
I feel
incredible.
bad almost like saying that I did it so quickly, but I was just obsessive. Like that was.
Well, but that's what fuels you, and that's how you're able to put out this beautiful book product that you're working on. And when you have that passion and vision, it just kind of comes together sometimes. And sometimes it's pretty fast, that's when it was really meant to be. I think
so. Right.
I think so. Well, let's talk about the big break in your career. So you were just signed with Lunar Literary Agency, which is a huge milestone. So how did you feel whenever you got the news? And just tell us kind of about that process.
So when I started querying, I found querytracker.net, and they have lists of literally hundreds of agents US, UK, Canada, and like all of the authors that they've represented. So literally the first one that I queried, even though I knew it was a long shot, was Diana Gabaldon's
Okay.
agent. And
she writes?
She was Outlander.
Outlander.
She's written Outlander.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, so I'm going to go after the ones that I think
big
would
hitters.
be interested in this story. Because it's very epic. It's very big. It's very like multiple worlds situation. So,
okay.
But of course, a part of the process, which I had expected but learned also, was rejection.
Yeah.
Rejection's huge. I mean, it's just a part of it. Like, there's so much competition. Everyone's got crazy ideas. There's so much good content out there. And there's some people that are like really professional, you know, they got their master's or PhD in writing, or maybe they're teachers and they were born to do this kind of thing. But again, strike home the idea that like you have to know your audience and you have to know what the audience is looking for, and you have to have a story that's gonna be really desirable. And then of course, you know, you might be really good at grammar and syntax and all those things, but if you don't have like the voice and the passion down, or the world building and the setting down, it's not gonna hit. It's not gonna. So I was like, I'm gonna do my best. I'm just gonna try to get all these boxes. I want it to feel like some of my favorite reads. And a recent read. So you know, first it was Outlander was the most recent one, and then I read Fourth Wing. I read the ACOTAR books, but Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series was just, it's life changing. The Throne of Glass series is like for people that are really into the epic fantasy. Okay. And it is just, it's amazing. I mean, I don't necessarily anticipate dragging this one out for 8 books, but what she did there was perfect. I mean, it needed to happen. Each book was so well done and built, and the story, just the epic conclusion, and yeah, you can't do it any better than that. So that right there, I was like, man, if I could just get like a sprinkle of whatever voodoo magic she used to make those books, then I'll be good. So a lot of rejections though. I got like over 40 rejections, which is actually a small number compared to a lot of people.
Congrats.
Yeah, there's some authors that get like hundreds of rejections, and they spend years querying. And then literally I was like debating going indie and just self-publishing like so many people do, and then I reached out to Angie at Lunar Lit, and I sent her a query. She called me like 2 days later. It was like a Sunday, and she was like, I love it. Let's go.
Gosh.
I was like, no way.
That had to have given you goosebumps.
No
or just,
way.
You know, did your heart stop?
Yeah, I did. My heart totally stopped. And to have someone that's like in your corner that can support you and support the story and champion the story to like a large publishing house, that's hopefully my ticket.
Well, that is so exciting. I'm so proud of you and happy for you. So congrats again. Especially, you know, just kind of being newer to this and having someone see your talent so early on, that has to be a confidence boost and help you know that you're on the right track.
It was mostly validating, but now I'm just like, I'm scared. Like, it's so much and like it's daunting. And she told me, she's like, okay, well, this is a long process, and just keep writing, just keep up the momentum. So I've been trying to put all of the what will happen kind of in the back of my mind and just focus on the writing right now.
Well, that's wonderful. Why don't you tell us just a little bit, maybe a highlight of the book, the premise of the story?
So it is, it's definitely a duality of good versus evil story. There is a blend of like Norse and Judeo-Christian mythology, but the general outline is the fall of Lucifer. Okay. If it were to take place on a planet that fought back.
Interesting.
And then lost.
Wow.
And
so
then,
pretty,
and
yeah,
then,
I know you mentioned it has some loss and grief and some pretty heavy emotions in there.
And I tied in like a few things that are like Book of Ezekiel and Isaiah and Book of Enoch and Job, and kind of the idea that like there is offspring of celestial beings, and they have their own powers, which I'm not going to get into. And
gotta save some for the the actual book.
But they're going to be important to overthrow the tyrant that now runs this place.
Interesting.
And, yeah, she's bad news. Yeah.
Oh, a female.
Yeah, she's a fallen angel.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm very excited to read it. I mean, just hearing, how passionate you are about it and the process, it's just very exciting. And I can't wait to get into it. So, well, I know we don't want to give too much away, but what about conflict and stakes? Every great fantasy story has some pretty high stakes. What are the biggest conflicts in this story that you can share?
The main character, her name is Ada. She starts off as low as you can go. She's like a vagabond, and she's lost her family, and she has this power, and she doesn't know what to do with it. She doesn't understand it. No one can explain it to her because when the Sovereign took over, all talk of the prior race that existed on this world was just kind of wiped off the map. She just wanted them to focus on her.
Okay.
So all the histories and archives, and they're all wiped clean. So this her generation in her world, they know nothing, and they just kind of blindly follow this super oppressive, cruel leader. And then she meets Tyrion, who is a soldier, and he has been linked to her subconscious since they were children.
Oh.
And they don't understand it. They don't know how to navigate it.
Is it kind of like a soul ties situation?
It's a fated mate situation, yeah. And but what I wanted, and that's different in a lot of stories, is there's a lot of conflict between the romantic characters, and that's great. Sometimes it's just you love it and you chew it up, and we all love a good enemies to lovers. But similar to Outlander, the main protagonists are straight up ride or die, and then the world around them is collapsing, and they have to figure out how to overcome obstacles together. But there's going to be plenty of conflict between the two of them.
Okay.
Anyway,
well, I cannot wait to read it. As far as timing, what do you think that looks like as far as having a book for our listeners to get their hands on?
Oh, man. So I'm on all of the channels.
Okay.
I'm on Book Talk. I'm on Instagram and Threads. And
you're doing great, by the way. You have a large following already. So that's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, if I could tell anyone that's looking to do this, anything, its marketing is gigantic. It's huge.
Preach.
Yeah. Even really successful authors are I think they're successful because I've read their books, but they are marketing with their own time and money.
Yeah.
And there's not very many people you can hire PR, and I'm looking into that. But
if you need someone, let me know.
Yeah. To create posts and put up quotes and content and commissioned art. And another thing I gotta say too is you're gonna be so much more successful if you do not use AI.
Okay.
There is a gigantic boycott against authors that use AI for anything, art or anything. No matter.
I've seen that
if
lately.
You're oh, it's just for the nope. I don't even have ChatGPT on my phone.
Okay.
Because I just don't want to be.
Yeah. You don't want to go down that path.
Yeah. I just I want to be old school. And it's super important. How are we gonna have authors and creators and artists if we just rely on robots to do everything for us?
It's true. I love that you mentioned that because I'd say over the last week or so, I've seen so much come out about Chat GPT and how to spot fake content or the easy way out. And so, and I will say,
we went through college and we didn't need it.
We definitely didn't have it at our fingertips.
Yeah.
I will say it is useful for certain instances, but if you're writing a book and an author, you definitely want it to be your own work. And when you get into tapping into AI, I think it is a little bit of a muddy waters situation.
Yes. I wouldn't even mess with it at all. And it just to support your fellow creators out there too. I mean, there's so many people that are looking to have either as a side hustle or they're looking to leave their 9-to-5, and there's amazing artists out there, digital artists and stuff out there. So just look around and ask around, and they're there.
I love that. What would you say for anyone who's aspiring to be a writer? For anyone starting out, what would you say to help push them through tough moments and keep moving forward?
I deal with this a lot. I mean, writer's block is a totally real thing. Even if you have an idea that you've got a pretty good frame around, sometimes the voice isn't there. Sometimes you look at it and you look at the page and you're just like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it today. And take those moments and take advantage of those moments. If you know that you're not going to create the best product that you can make in that moment, take a break, walk away. Even if it's just you just got 2 sentences down for the day. I mean, there's days where I have, I've got my kid is almost 4. She's all over the place. There are some days where I'll just get a paragraph in, and there's another days where I have a few hours and I get 2,000 words done.
Wow.
So you just have to.
So progress is progress.
Progress
and don't,
is progress.
Harp on the one paragraph, because that could have been a crucial paragraph too.
Yeah, and you can't start querying until the book is finished either, because what if you got the call the next day and they want to see the full manuscript and it's not done? That's not a good look. So just worry about the story and how it feels to the story, and then everything else will come after.
I think that makes a lot of sense. What about inspiration? Inspiration can come from so many places, as you know, from taking a nap. When you do get that spark of inspiration, how do you turn it into a story? And, how do you take it from your thoughts and in your mind to putting it on paper?
I don't know how true this is, but there apparently are people out there that cannot conceptualize things like a movie in their head. I'm sure it's a very low number of the population. But for me, when I read, it's like a movie playing out. So I imagine it, and then I outline it, and then vibe is important too. I have a whole playlist for the first book, for the second book.
Awesome. So you're having a specific playlist while you're writing?
Yes.
Wow. What kind of songs are on that list? Is it classical? Is it hip hop?
Yeah, it's definitely not classical. The first book is more of kind of deep, slow reverb trap, night drive music. There's some metal thrown in there too. Sleep Token is, I'm in love. I think they're amazing, and it's like Hosier meets Amon Amarth.
I love Hosier.
He's just Vessel's got the book girlies by a chokehold right now.
That's fun.
It's emotional, but hard and intense too. I can't.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I wonder if some people, can't write with noise or music going on.
Sometimes I can't.
Yeah.
No, sometimes I can't. And I'm just like, especially if it's an action scene, I need total silence.
Yeah.
But if it's more of a, togetherness scene, or a spicy scene or whatever, I usually have music playing.
Well, I love that. I love music. I'm a huge music lover, and, usually have something going on in the background. If I'm in the car, there's always a playlist or, music keeping me going. But that's interesting how that plays into your writing process. So,
vibe is huge.
Yeah.
Vibe is it's going to help you with the marketing. Vibration, the story is giving off. For this story, there's some dark themes, there's some dark elements. It's also kind of high impact, high adrenaline. So I kind of wanted to keep it intense.
So you have to be in that mindset and have that kind of stuff surrounding you.
Yeah. I'm not going to be listening to T Swift when I'm writing this particular book.
I guess that makes sense for this. Well, that's amazing. So earlier, before we started the podcast, we were kind of catching up and talking about mom life and just balancing it all. How do you think that you've been able to balance it all? And what do you have for fellow writers who are trying to juggle a family, a spouse, or something that's keeping a lot of their time and attention? How would you recommend them, advice for them to juggle it all? I know. Could I have some advice too?
I don't know if I'm the best person to ask this.
But you're making it. You're doing it.
I would say to do in the time that I've done is borderline unhealthy. When I was writing the first book, I was staying up super late. I was only getting a few hours of sleep because I was
you're in the zone.
I want to put it on paper. I just want to get it down, and then I'm going to edit it, and then I'll take my time doing that. And then of course I want to market it too. I can't wait to start talking about it. So,
yes.
But you have to do that. That's how I got an agent. If I didn't have the followers and setting kind of already established, and that way she probably would have looked me over. So.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, because I do want to hear from you about just starting from scratch, setting up a new social following. How, any advice for how to do that as an author, with growing a following from scratch and without much of a marketing background yourself? I think it's pretty amazing that you did that.
Engagement's huge.
Yep.
I follow like pretty much every author that I come
Okay.
across. And like reader, like if they're like they're specifically like a reader type, and I just like watching their content too for book recommendations and stuff. But yeah, I follow all the authors. We cheer each other on.
Yeah.
We're supportive of each other. It's not like as competitive as it is. Yes, we don't want to compete with each other. There is plenty of space.
Yes.
For new voices out there, and for marginalized voices out there. There's plenty of room. As long as the writing is there and the hook is there and the marketing is there, people are going to find you.
Yeah. I love it. What about, we talked about this a little bit too, before we actually sat down and recorded, but with some of your topics being heavy in the book and dealing with, many heightened emotions, what would you say, how you're able to separate that for your own kind of mental health and peace of mind? You're having to put yourself in these different characters and dealing with their emotions. How do you separate the two, and how do you protect your own mental peace?
Yeah, I definitely compartmentalize. I mean, there are times where I'm I'm writing like a really wild scene, and I've got a Disney movie like going on in the background. That's
for some balance, or what?
Yeah,
for the child.
No doubt that's happened. But for the lot of like kind of crazier scenes, I'll tell my husband like I need a few hours to step away to go do this in peace and quiet, so that I can fully be present with that. And then as soon as I'm done, I feel like gratified.
Okay.
Like it doesn't feel as draining. Now I'm in the middle of the second book in the series right now, and there's been so much action in the first part of the book that felt draining. And like once I hit the halfway point, I was like, I'm gonna take like a 2-day break.
Yeah. How do you reset, if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed? What are some things that you do to kind of reset and get yourself back to that focused mentality?
I get a lot of joy out of seeing my kid happy.
Okay.
So sometimes it's retail therapy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just going to the park
and
just like letting her run around and have fun. And she loves obviously me being around her too. So like just doing stuff together as a family.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, this has been so great, hearing about your book and the process and the inspiration. And it's just very, I think, encouraging for other people who think, they have an idea and they don't know where to start. This could be a great, resource. So. You're a great resource for people to kind of tap into and hear how you've done your own book and your journey through that. So I love that you've shared that with us. What does looking ahead look like? What are your dreams and goals for the future and, for your writing career and the world of Chasm of Dreams?
Man, absolute, total, like, if it happened, I would just literally pass out on the floor. So Bloomsbury Publishing House.
Okay.
Is gigantic.
It's your goal.
You got your top 5, your big 5 houses, your HarperCollins, your Simon and Schuster, Source Books, Macmillan, Penguin Random House. If any of those signed me, I would freak out. But Bramble and Bloom, those are another amazing publishers that put out books that I love. And if they took a chance on me, I would cry. It would be so amazing. But that is not necessarily something that I want to focus on entirely, because I know that there are books out there that are self-published and hybrid published, and they have a great following. It just depends on like where you find your readers. Yeah. And ending up in a bookstore, that's the goal, but you can do that a million different ways. So absolutely. So yeah. Well, I know it's going to happen. I see it for you, and I would love to help you with a book launch party whenever that comes. Keep me posted and let me know. I would love to help, pro bono or just as friend to friend, help you with some of that. So I think that's super exciting.
Well, to kind of close us out, the whole premise of the podcast is talking about challenges, overcoming them, unexpected things that happen in your life. Can you share a defining moment or an experience that maybe started out as a challenge, and it could be tied to this writing process or something else, but started out as a challenge and eventually turned into that fortunate event, a defining moment, some bright light in your career or your life?
Oh, I mean, I definitely went through so much transformation becoming a mom. And I am not ashamed to say that at all. But for career, I think that's what it did is it gave me a thicker skin.
Okay.
And it made me a little bit more of a harder and resilient person, so that I could write a book like this without it completely dragging my mental health into the toilet.
Yeah.
And I could compartmentalize properly with like a healthy balance of kid stuff versus really adult content.
Yes.
So having her was a game changer for sure. And then just naturally being an extrovert helps a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there's a lot of introvert writers out there, and it's hard for them to do the marketing part, and I get that. So being an extrovert definitely helps, and having a thick skin and just knowing that not everyone's gonna like your book. Not everyone's gonna like it. That's just a part of it. And in fact, I heard someone say the other day, if you have not received negative reviews, your book has not reached a large enough audience.
I like that because
like,
not like you said, not everyone's gonna like it.
Nope.
And if you're hearing all one-sided content, you're never gonna know how to grow or improve.
Yep.
Or
you can't focus on just the good and the validating, because that's not life, right?
Well, that's a really good point, and maybe we'll talk about this as the last question. But with having so much rejection, how are you able to kind of overcome that? What advice would you maybe give? And maybe we hit on this earlier, but rejection is such a hard thing. I think not even just for writers, but in life in general. So, how do you get through rejection?
A few things that I've learned, and I double check me on the actual number, but I know J.K. Rowling was rejected like almost 17 times.
Wow.
For Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
No,
being the publisher.
What a phenomenal, mega whatever palooza thing that came out of that.
Or the agent. Yeah. Like, darn it, I missed that one.
Yeah.
And then I think Stephanie Meyer, who wrote Twilight, she was rejected like 9 or 10 times, something like that. So just that's a part of it.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to find your niche agent. You're not going to find your niche publisher until just the time is right. And then sometimes for a lot of people, it happens after they self-publish. It's kind of like the industry has flipped a little bit in that way. So if you feel like you just want to get that book out there, get some readers, and even if they're just your regular people that just love it, I mean, someone eventually will love it and want to pick it up too.
Rejection, like you said, it is part of life. On a previous podcast, a guest made the comment that rejection is really redirection. So just putting you on your right path, and it may hurt, but it'll help you get thicker skin, like you said, and become a more well-rounded person. I think life can't always be, rainbows.
Nope, definitely not. And the book is definitely not rainbows. So, but it does have like heavy themes of redemption. And found family and love and really intense romance and like all of like the feel good things that I personally love in books. So
that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. How can listeners reach out to you and get a hold of you if they want to connect?
So I am on Instagram at Dakoda Mazzii author. That's Mazzii. My name is spelled Dakoda. D is in dog. And I'm on TikTok, and I think I'm on the Threads and all that stuff. And right now I'm just in hype mode. I'm just spreading the word, and I want people to kind of join the journey with me. Yeah.
Well, I love it. And I love following you, and I'll definitely link your Instagram and any other contact information that you would like to share. I'll link that on this podcast episode.
All right.
So feel free to reach out to her if you want to get in touch. But thank you so much again for joining me. It really has been an inspiration and just so fun to listen to your feedback and your insights on the process and how to get started and how to, overcome the hard things to get to the end result. So thank you again. For the listeners here, make sure that you stay tuned. There's going to be a total of 22 episodes for this podcast series, and I'll be recording about once a week, maybe every other week for the next few months. So
Yay.
Lots more guests coming, all with their own very exciting story. So
thank you.
All right. Well, until
I
then,
appreciate it.
next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.